So for somebody who wants to get into risk-based monitoring, they like what you're saying, they think this is something we need to do. I'm sure there's many different ways to do it and different solutions out there that they can incorporate. Are you able to give kind of an overview of what those different solutions are and how they would work?
Yeah, you know, and it's really, there is no prospective way of doing this. If you go to what's out there from industry, particularly from TransCelerate, you know, there are very large spreadsheets available to anybody, not just TransCelerate company members, that, you know, are basically laundry lists. They've basically pulled all of their ideas and, you know, what could possibly go wrong in a clinical trial and try to capture it. And I think for most people, if they were to go into that spreadsheet and say, okay, my role in this company is I have to implement a quality management system. I need to convince my management that this is important. I have to, you know, show them how I'm going to do it. And if you opened up that spreadsheet and then had a meeting and tried to bring everybody into the meeting and say, okay, we're going to go through each of these and rank every single piece of data according to the importance for this particular study, and every time we have a new study, we're going to do this all over again. I think that's daunting. And I think the size of those documents and sort of the sheer volume of information and a little bit of, you know, kind of not knowing where to begin is giving people pause. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because I'm not a firm believer in, you know, throwing everything into a spreadsheet and managing it that way. The approach I've seen in the past, so just giving, you know, stepping back and giving a little bit of background, one of the very first studies that was part of TransCelerate's effort to implement risk-based monitoring, I was actually involved in, and it was a very large CV outcome study in diabetes. And the study was ongoing when it was implemented. And I know that people have been asking about, well, how do I convince, you know, my management that this is something that we should implement? Well, interestingly enough, it came down, top down from management as, you are going to implement this because we believe that ultimately, and this is the key, we believe ultimately this is going to cut 50% of your monitoring costs from this huge clinical study. And, you know, the budget for the study was in the hundreds of millions, so you can imagine that got people's attention. And so it basically was a very rudimentary, there's more sophisticated systems now. It was a very rudimentary system where, you know, things were flagged, there was algorithms, and if, you know, you hit certain percentages within your metric, was all very calculated out, your spreadsheet would turn red in certain fields. And then the team was set to take that information and go ahead and try to, you know, pay attention to those red flags. And, you know, I thought it was a very interesting experience because, you know, people will march in whatever direction you tell them. So if you say, here's a spreadsheet that shows you the issues in your study, take care of them, they are going to start to focus on getting those red cells out of that spreadsheet. And I think that's the sort of the cautionary tale for me, is that I don't think it's that simple, and I don't think that, you know, you really want to rely on something like that. And now it's a little bit more sophisticated, there's dashboards and whatnot. I think, you know, the takeaway for me is that you still have to, you know, be looking at things holistically and qualitatively, you know, in addition to the quantitative, and, you know, really understanding the drivers of your particular study is always going to be the most, you know, cost benefit for you to spend your time and effort. And so I think for implementing these kinds of systems, it really starts with the beginning of the study and doing a very, very thorough risk evaluation and taking what you know from past studies, from past experiences, and using that to sort of build, you know, what we're going to look at and what we're going to really take action on if we start to see things go south. To me, that is really good, effective risk-based monitoring, and it's not just about necessarily reducing source data verification. It's really bringing, you know, the intelligence of the quality management into a centralized point and making sure that the study team leadership is having those really important discussions.
Right, and I think one of the concerns a lot of people have is quality, and it seems like if you do this the right way, if you plan it correctly and implement it correctly, that you could actually have more quality built into the system than possibly you did in the past.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, and I think that's what ICH is trying to get at. I think the translation of it is, you know, people are struggling, and I understand that. But really, it's all about the quality.